Thank you, Lance. Appreciate it. Great opening today. Good morning, everyone. Hi. As Lance said, Mickey Severite. I'm a storyteller at heart. At 22, I was a managing editor of a daily newspaper. Journalism is my background. And at that point, I took a lot of pride in informing my community, right? Laser focused on giving a voice to others. As my career moved along, I moved into public relations, investor relations, crisis communications, and marketing. And after 2 decades of strategic communications expertise, I'm still learning, right? Today, it's all about people experience. We'll be chatting about internal communications, employee engagement, and how our team got 9 out of every 10 of our 14,000 plus employees onto our intranet and employee mobile app. But first, let me introduce you to our brand. If anybody watched March Madness, right, basketball tournament, you may have seen this advertisement.
Love the windows.
And they're built to last. Oh, Andersen is the #1 trusted window and door brand.
Sick window!
Yeah, he's right. Really sleek frame. Easy open, easy close.
Oh, so elegant.
And you'll stay dry. Andersen really opens up the space.
Wow. Oh, hey, what a view!
In a world where a lot can go wrong, trust your home to Andersen.
Do you trust me?
Not as much as I trust Andersen.
Hi, neighbor.
Anyone know the Property Brothers, right? We're happy to work with them. They're a lot of fun. Andersen was actually founded over 120 years ago on the philosophy of working all together. That's something that our founder used as a first phrase, and we still use it today. You might notice in the corner of the photo, it says April 1905, which is pretty fantastic to know that, 120 some years later, I'm showing that photo. But what we think about is, those people back then, how did they get informed on benefits of their company or what their leader's objective was? They certainly didn't have a mobile app or a company intranet. And a lot has changed at our company, certainly after the pandemic. We learned that our workforce of 14,000 people across North America and Italy needed more information. We have operations employees, logistics roles, many people without company email as well. And for many of our employees, English is not their native language. But what the pandemic did was inspire more communication and allowed us to look at the options and platforms of how we communicate. It also propelled our team, corporate communications, which rolls up through HR, as a trusted advisor. What we needed to solve for was that fragmented communications. We needed a better channel that didn't just focus on one-way talking to people. We knew we needed to fix those broken down leader cascades. And inconsistent employee experiences between locations, factories, desk-based roles, people in the field. And in fact, the broader human impact was that thousands of our employees didn't have digital access to their paycheck. Thousands of people in 2021 could not find their digital paycheck. They had limited autonomy, and they depended on someone else passing down that information of company news and updates. So I started with that 90% engagement metric. We didn't get there because we launched a platform, an intranet. It increased because we changed our strategy behind how experience was designed. It was part of a broader workforce transformation. And while technology mattered, it was the shift in how we thought about serving our people and meeting them where they are. And that engagement then followed our cultural intent. So let's talk about how we defined our strategy for our intranet and that engagement campaign. We call our intranet the circle at Andersen, and 3 simple pillars that was part of our operating model: centralize and integrate, design for relevance, and enable local ownership. You'll see this is our employee app as well. We knew we needed an intranet and mobile app that would provide everyone with an elevated experience and modern technology that was centralized, that they could access safely and securely from inside of our company, but also from home or on the go through their own phone, their device. It needed to have segmentation so we could communicate to very specific groups with intent. It also needed to be the hub where we could link to other Andersen applications, workforce applications, and resources, but it was this one starting point. And increase employee engagement by providing all people with that consistent opportunity to access the important information and tools. Let's jump into it. So when we think centralize and integrate, our goal was to build one unified hub. This would be for all of our HR systems too. We would simply tell people to go to the circle. That's our true north, our hub of all things, and also our front page of the Andersen newspaper, digital newspaper. When we leaned on segmentation, it was using our workforce data. We only communicated to the people who needed to be communicated to. We aimed to communicate effectively and efficiently with all employees, no matter where they physically were or what their job role was. And how we could eliminate that fragmentation, clarity is kindness, right? And so it was as easy as telling our employees to take action by going to the circle first and find what they needed to find. Designing for relevance required really this intentional segmentation and target approach. Our news, resources, the tools were delivered with intention. We had different communication types for different job roles within our company, knowing where they sat and whether they were in front of a computer or working all day, assembling a window, or on the road delivering our products. So maybe it was short form post with a very clear call to action. Maybe it was a pulse poll, a long form post. We have leader-led videos. We have podcasts that our drivers can just simply listen to on their route. The experiences were based also on employee interest. Here you'll see our 9 business impact groups. How many of your organizations have affinity groups, employee resource networks, groups like that? That's wonderful. You know, each of these 9 groups have between 150 to 900 members who subscribe through our intranet to their updates. They get push notifications, they get emails, they get messages within the employee app, and they're reminded about engaging and finding a place where they belong within the company. We also make sure that these groups are public within our intranet. So if someone just wants to check it out but doesn't want to opt in or subscribe, it's open for them. Having relevant content, it wasn't convenient. It's not personalization for convenience sake. It's really out of respect for each of our employees and where they are at. So when our employees see information that reflects their role, their language, their location, their interests, that trust increases. The corporate communications team could not do it by ourselves, certainly. We had amazing partners from IT, data, technology, our HR business partners, and truly the leaders across our company. So including those volunteer leaders from our business impact groups, We built a network of local champions, many who were already advocates of the employee experience. We developed a train-the-trainer model, which would encourage them and upskill them in communications and digital technology to manage their own online communities within our intranet and mobile app. It enabled them to learn a little bit more about design and maybe communications and marketing engagement isn't in their job role, but they got to do something a little more interesting or fun, bring that to their community. Our team maintained governance and enablement, and there were very clear rules for company-wide posts and communications to everyone versus specific targeted messages. It really signaled a cultural shift in our company, where I mentioned 14,000 people, and about 2/3 of those didn't have access to our former intranet. But that unified strategy didn't mean a centralized control. It meant shared ownership with a clear structure. And when people see themselves and their needs reflected, they're more engaged. Today, we have 40 groups on our intranet, from those business impact groups to local sites to even a few departments where they tried using Teams channels. They tried using SharePoint, and it just didn't work. And so they wanted to build their online community already on the intranet where they're already going. This graph shows that so far in 2026, 280 posts, about 20 per week, were published by that group of content producers alone, outside of corporate messages, leader messages from our team. Now, there's still the balance of, is it too much? Is it too much noise? Are these intentional communications? And that's the learning, right? That's the ongoing communication and engagement with those folks. But it truly did deliver enterprise messages at a local level and local messages amongst those teams. It's this is a big part of it, is how we got to that 90% metric. It wasn't accidental or coincidental. It really is the part of deliberate design and our strategic choices. What I love about our platform, which is Mango Apps, is that we have access to so many languages. And I mean, this is AI out of the box that didn't even scream at people like, hey, you're using AI. It just was there for them. And so we give our employees, if they're using the mobile app, they have access to 23 different languages. They just change their setting. If they're using the desktop, 59. We're able to communicate in compliance with some of our employees who are up in Canada, speak French Canadian. So when we deliver our Voice of the Employee, actually it's happening right now, Voice of the Employee survey, they can see it in their native language. You'll see that once an employee changes their language settings, the content, similar to over here, all of it changes, from the names of our quick links to all of the text within a post. This was also an impactful part of our delivery for inclusion and accessibility, to make sure we're meeting our employees where they are, but make it available for everyone. A part of that accessibility was also just the simple digital technology communication tools that is intrinsic to a marketing role or corporate communications. But again, these, 140 some people who are helping to manage these groups, it's not part of their training. And so to help so many of our content producers, we leverage them to use language and accessibility tools to deliver their communications. With this translated content, we trained all of those contributors to avoid text within an image within a post. We trained them to still use, if they developed a beautiful PDF, right? It's great to deliver that, but use that text within the post, so then it could be translated. It could be turned into a podcast style. And you'll see throughout the progression here that in that final image, the story comes to life when an employee has set Spanish as their preferred language. We socialize these best practices and educated how translation is enabled with AI technology. Training centered on that better experience for their end user, for their teams. So 3 years later, this Women of Andersen group has over 830 women and men a part of their group communicating, and this last March, Women's History Month, put out daily spotlights of different people across the company. And it's great to know that they're doing it in an accessible way. Last year, we also launched Workday, UKG. We were continuing to get our employees to use an Ask HR kind of platform. You know, a lot of change in the HR space. What we also did was to enable those leaders, specifically within our operations area, to be able to communicate to their employees. So this is an example of some segmentation messages that we did that allowed those leaders and our HR business partners together to announce the launch of the new platforms, to clearly define within the post what's in it for me, for that last end user, to highlight the importance of benefits open enrollment, right? And to be reminded of those necessary compliance technology access ways to actually just get in the door to use the internet and mobile app. We saw that integration reduced friction, the ownership increased participation, localization increased trust, and our support for a mobile-first user experience for our frontline employees was successful. These high-stake moments that we have within our calendar year for communication build those engagement habits. When our CEO shares a video message with the company specifically, we see the numbers skyrocket, right? To have your top leader talking directly to you is great. What we've been able to do, in addition to sharing those videos at town hall meetings, was to deliver them in a segmented way so the message resonated with the audience. He also announces our company's profit sharing program, which dates back 100 and some years, when our founder personally delivered the checks. There's a lot of pride in that legacy and that story and how we retell that, not assuming that our end user knows that history, reminding them, but also the gift of profit sharing to all of our employees. People are going to turn their heads when it's about money, right? They're going to want to be informed. We were able to publish 3 distinct post versions based on that target audience using HR data. So we knew who we were sending it to was accurate. So again, technology alone didn't do this. Our platform enabled that access, and the strategy helped that behavior change. But it was the culture that made it sustainable. So looking back to how we started and where we're at, how it's going, our strategy to drive our employee engagement, specifically across that frontline workforce, when we launched in 2022, people were excited. They were jazzed about it. When they got through that front door on the employee app or at kiosks within our operations sites, they didn't know, 2 clicks, there's your digital paycheck. And then last year, when we launched more of our HR tools, transitioned to the next modern technology, that's when we started to see so many more people being engaged. We went from a survey in 2022 that had about 300 people giving us feedback on the internet to last year about 1,600 responses. We sustained that frontline usage, and we saw that growth over time. That engagement increased because relevance increased. Our frontline usage increased because the autonomy increased. And the interaction across the internet and mobile app increased because that ownership was shared and distributed. So if you remember nothing else from me today, just remember this. When people feel informed, inspired, and engaged, they're empowered. They feel more connected to the employee experience and to where they work and getting the answers, tools, and resources for what they do. And strategic goals are met because human needs are met first. We're constantly learning and educating our users. This was that first ever platform to engage everyone at our company. We're still reminding people it's not a SharePoint site. Yes, your operator who puts the windows together can access this. It's always going to be reminders for everyone at our company. But we took time to pause and celebrate some accomplishments, and we're proud of that. You have to. Our team was recognized both internally and externally with an Andersen Excellence Award for being a special place to work. And then also, just 2 years ago, at the Reagan Conference here in Chicago for Employee Communications Awards. We were honored for the launch of our intranet and our engagement campaign. So some lessons and what's next for us. We decided the why before choosing the what. Before selecting the tool, the platform, or the systems, we had to be clear on the business and people problem that we were trying to solve. That outcomes matter, the behaviors or processes that needed to change, and that technology should serve those decisions but not define them. And that relevance wasn't about constant reinvention, but it was about consistent alignment across the board with our strategy, with our audience needs, with our leader accountability, and with our values and our priorities as a company. And while engagement has a shelf life, you have to be intentional about sustaining it. It's ongoing, it's not program-based, and it can't be fixed with a launch, an employee perk, or a week-long campaign. Programs don't engage people, it's the relationships that do. It's not a one-time or a one-channel initiative. The trust was earned, and we continue to maintain it over time. And those content champions continue to own the relationships with their own local workforce, champions for the circle for our team. Speaking of some champions, Mango Apps does have an exhibit downstairs if you're interested. Please go chat with them about your needs or grab a free Mango packet as well. So everything that I shared with you today, change management, strategic communications, employee engagement, it ultimately comes down to one moment. It's whether your employee chooses to trust you and believe what they're being told. When we get communication right as HR champions, we don't just support the business, we shape that employee experience. And that's truly where that influence lives. Thanks so much. I'll take any questions.